In this video, I'm going to share on P4 Mathematics 2024 Term 3 Review from Tong School. So let's get started on the first question, finding the missing numbers. So we have 85.007 and it has 80 plus A plus 7B. So basically, find the missing numbers, right? So in this case, what we can do is that we actually can break this down, right? So 80 plus what is A, right? So in the first thing is we want to focus more on 85 over here. So then we have 80. So what plus 80 gives us 85? Okay. Why we want to focus on the whole number first is because we know that 7 over here, right? 7 over here is more focused on the decimal part, which is not what we want right now. Okay. So right now we just want to focus on the 80 first. Okay. So with this 80, if we go and answer this simple question, which is basically 85 is equal to 80 plus, what is it, right? So if you want to work backwards, pretty straightforward. This, or basically A is equal to 85 minus 80, which is equal to 5. Therefore, the answer to this A is 5. Okay, pretty straightforward. Right, let's move on to B. So now we know that A is 5, then B itself, right? In this case, if we were to look at B 7 out of B and 0.7, right? I think this teacher who set this paper might be a big fan of James Bond 007. If you don't know that, then it's fine. But either way, so how do we then get, right? Basically, in this case, if you put here 0.007 is equal to basically 7, and this is a fraction. We just want to know what is divide by, right? By B. So if we guess the answer, B is actually 1000, right? Because if we were to have B divided by 1000, it will become 0.007. How do we know that is, if you remember decimals, right? Basically, you count the number of zeros over here. So you have 3 zeros. So that means if you have 7, right? Then we will push our 7 to the left. So it's 7, you got 1, 2, and 3. And then we put a dot over here. And we put a 0, and then we put a 0, and then we put a 0 as well. So that means 3 zeros will make us 0.007, which is the answer over here. Therefore, the answer for P is 1000. All right, that's it. Let's move on to the next one. Question 2. Right? In this case, round 659.84 to the nearest tenth. So the thing is that one thing that I've noticed that my students do is that they think the tenth is actually 4. But the thing is that if you remember closely, right, that tenth over here is not 4, but it's actually 8. Okay, so if you remember from your decimal place, okay, so 8 over here, zero point 0.8, this is your 10th place. Okay, and then 0.04, this is your 100th place, right? So there's no 1th place. So there's no such thing as 1th. Don't have, right? There's no such thing. Okay, so we only know that 8 over here is your 10th place. So that means what we need to do is we need to check at our 4 over here whether it is 5 or more if we want to round up or round down. So in this case 4 is actually not more than 5, so we just let it remain the same. Therefore, we will just then round like the same as 659.8. Okay, because our 4 over here is not 5 or more. So if I were to write a text over here and says here 4 is not 5 or more, so we just remove it. Okay, so therefore the answer is 659.8. Okay, so that's the answer over here, 659.8. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, same number but to the nearest whole number. So sometimes people might not know what this whole number means, right? So this whole number itself is actually something pretty straightforward. It's actually saying to the nearest 9, right? If I were to write here, to the nearest 9. Okay, so this is something that you need to take note. To the nearest whole number means to the nearest ones, right? In this case, to nearest ones, right? So therefore, you need to look at your first decimal place. So I covered the dot here, but if I were to make it a little bit small, you have your dot over here. So what we care about is this 8 to see whether it is 5 or more. So in this case, is this 8 5 or more? Yes, it is. So 8 is 5 or more. So therefore, we need to round up. So let me have an arrow to just round up. Okay, so we're going to round up our 8. And therefore, in this case over here, our 9 will then add by 1. So we're going to add our 9 by 1. So essentially, the equation will be pretty straightforward. It will be 659 plus 1. That's it, right? And this will become 660. So that's it. So if your nearest whole number, that means, okay, this is just round up lah. 8 is just round up. Then the answer in here will be 660. Okay, I don't know why there's an LR here. But yeah, so 660 is the answer for this. All right, let's move on to. All right, question 3. So in this case, in 853792, what's the value of the digit in the hundreds place? So I think you might have heard me earlier saying that common mistake that is students will say that, oh yeah, zero point 0.7 is the 1th place, then 0.09 is the what do you call this, 10th place, and then point 0.002 is the 100th place. So therefore, they say that since 0.02 is 100 place, that means this is the answer, which in fact it's not, because there's no such thing as 1th place, right? So in this case, the number 3 over here, whoops, not this one. Number 3 over here is 1's place, then 7 is the 10th place, 9 is the 100th place, and 2 is the 1000th place. So if I were to, update this a bit, 10th, and then this is 100th, and this is the 1000th place, right? So therefore, what's the value of the 100th place? It should be 0.09 in this case over here, right? I forgot to put the 0, but yeah, in this case, it will be 0.09. So that's the answer in this question over here. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 4. Express 5, 11 or 25 as a decimal. Okay, so a lot of times, what you can do, there's two ways, right? The first way is you can just, in a way, have 11 and then you divide it by 25. Okay, so you can do your working. So in a way, this will be 5 plus 11 divided by 25 and you get the answer, right? Or the second way, which is the easier one, which is basically, second way is to make the denominator to 100. Okay, so I prefer I think you guessed it, the second way, because this is much easier. Okay, so in this case, what we can do is that we will just put in here 11, okay, over, right? So I'll put 25. Okay, so 11 out of 25, I'll put a line here. Okay, and then basically what this will become is what we can multiply to make the denominator 100. So in this case, let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so in this case, what we can do is we can actually just multiply by 4. Okay, or you can just have 100 divided by 25, you multiply by 4, and we can multiply by 4 in this case, and therefore this will become, so 11 times 4, what will it become? Oops, it will become 44, right? So we have 44 out of 100. Okay, and that's the answer to this, right? So 44 out of 100, that's not the answer, sorry, that is only the first answer. Okay, so 44 out of 100, now you know what this is. Basically 44 out of 100 is equal to, if you know, it's basically 44 divided by 100, which is 0.44. Okay, and now we have our 5 whole number. in this case, so we can just add 5. So the next step will just be 5 plus 0.44 equal to 5.44, right? In this case over here. So the answer over here will be 5.44. Okay. So if you were to have this case, is 11 divided by 25 is not 24. 11 divided by 25 is 0.44 as well. Yeah, you can do that. Nothing wrong. But it's just that this is a much easier and I would say a safer way to do this as well. Okay, so that's question 4. All right, let's move on to question 5. Okay, arrange the decimals from greatest to smallest. Okay, so greatest is just biggest. Okay, smallest I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we need to know what is the greatest amongst these numbers. Okay, usually what I like to do is that I will see what is the largest not largest but longest number, and in this case is 4.003. So that means this has 3 decimal place, right? So the thing is that since this is 3 decimal place, I want to make everything into 3 decimal place because it's easier for me to compare. Okay, so let me put a 3 decimal place on top. So let's convert everything to 3 decimal place. So for this we have 4.300. Okay, then 0.34, this will be 0.340. Okay, then 304, this will be 3.040, and lastly you have 40, so the same number lah, 4003. Okay, so now in a sense, right, you can see that it's actually much easier to compare because everyone has the same decimal place. So with this, what is the biggest number here? So is it 4.300 or 4.003? Okay, so pretty straightforward. 4300 is the biggest. What's the second biggest? 4.003. Okay, third biggest 3.004, 3.040, and lastly 0.340. So now you just need to make sure to make it into their own simplified version. So 4.3 will be 4.300 will be 4.3. Then the next one will be 4.003. Next one is 3.04 without the 0 at the end. And lastly 0.34, like this. Okay, and that's the answer. Okay, so that's question 5, right? In this case. All right. Let's move on to question 6. So question 6 says here, A and B are two numbers on the number line below. So we have A and we have B. Okay, so 6A says express the number A as a decimal. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to count the number of spaces in between 2.7 and 2.8. Okay, so in this case, let us count. Right, you have one space, two space, three space, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that means each individual number should be just one. Okay, because once we have 10, that becomes 2.8 in this case over here. Okay, so that means if we were to have the number at the first point, it should be 2.71. Okay, so this is the first number in this case, right? And then we move on. So in this case, what will be the answer for A? So if you were to count again, so 2.71 is here, right? 2.71 here, right? And then after you move 2.72, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the answer for A should be 2.76. Okay, that is pretty straightforward. So 2.76 in this case over here. All right, now the next thing is we want to go to next question B. What is 0.001 less than number B? So what does this 0.01 less means? So this means less is minus 0.0, yeah, why is it dash? Minus 0.01 in this case over here. So this is what it means, right? So since we know that each individual point over here is basically 0.01, that means we can just, in a way have it go backwards, right? Like this. So in this case, 2.9, we just minus 1. That's it. So in this case, we can just have, for number B is 2.9, right? So 2.9 minus 0.01. Okay. And what will this give? to make it an easier minus equation for you, you just put 2.90. So remember, you see the longest decimal place, you just have the same decimal place for all the numbers, so it's easier for you. Minus 0.01. Okay, and the answer to this is 90 minus 1 is 2.89. Okay, and that's it. So question B is 2.89 in this case over here. Right, that's it. Right, pretty straightforward. Okay, so sometimes you might get confused what 0.01 less means. So less always is minus. And then what's the number that we're minusing off? 2.9. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Question 7. ABCD is a square, find T. So square, the property of a square, if you remember, is that all sides are right angle. Right? Right angle meaning that, right angle meaning that this is 90 uh, degrees. Okay, we put a degrees over here. Okay, so this is 90 degrees. So all sides are 90 degrees in this case. So here is also 90 degrees over here, and then this is also 90 degrees. Like, so that means at the corner where we want to find T is also 90 degrees in this case. Right, this whole thing. So then put a line from here to here. This is also 90 degrees. Okay, I can't bend this line, but that's fine. Wait, I can bend this line. Yeah, so this is 90 degrees as well, right? So that means for T, essentially, what we need to do is T is equal to 90 minus 30, and this is equal to 60. Therefore, 60, T is basically 90, 60 degrees in this case over here. Okay, so now the answer is 60 degrees. Alrighty, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 8. Figure WXYZ is a rectangle, right? So rectangle 8 cm, 3 cm. Okay, so next question is what's the length of ZY? So property of rectangle is basically the opposite sides are the same. So in this case, if 8 cm is in WX, that means Y and Z is also 8 cm. So if WZ over here is 3 cm, that means XY over here is also 3 cm. Okay, so that means what is the length of ZY? So ZY is this part, right? Oops, not this. Let me cancel this. All right, so ZY is at the bottom over here, this one. So let me just make it red. So we just want to know this, which is basically 8 cm. Therefore, the answer in this case is 8 cm. Okay, I just put 8 because the cm is there already. All right, next one. Identify, okay, in this case, one pair of parallel lines in WXYZ. Okay, so there's actually two answers to this. So if you were to go back to the ZY, right, the ZY over here is actually the same parallel lines as WX. So that means we can just put WX to ZY, right? Or okay, make sure it's everything all capital letters, ZY. Or is there another parallel lines? If you guessed it, it is also WZ. Okay, so let me have another color which is green. So WZ over here is also parallel to, you guessed it, XY. So we can put WZ or WZ. So WZ and XY. So we just have here WZ, ding ding, XY. Okay, XY over here, right? So therefore, this is both are correct in this case. All right. So yeah, that's it for 8. All right, let's go to question 9. Two sides of the square are in the square grid below. Complete the square. So the square, another property of the square, if I were to write this down, is basically all sides in black. All sides are in black. Okay, all sides of the square are equal length. Okay, so we want to kind of measure what's the length of the sides of this square. So luckily for this, we actually have the sides over here. Okay, so in a way, these sides are 3. So these are 3 square length. Okay, so if one side is 3 square length, then the other side should also be 3 square length as well. So over here and over here as well. Okay, so now what we can do is usually if you want to draw a square, the easiest way is in this case you can find I would say you can draw a rectangle, right? There's many ways to do it, to be honest, right? So you can draw a rectangle. So now it's easier for you to measure what is the length, right? So in this case, this is right. This is 3 SQ. SQ is just squares, right? Okay, 3 squares. Oops, 3 squares, right? So that means what we need to do is we also know that this is 3 squares in this case, right? So that means we just need to follow the pointer. Let me put a circle as well, or this circle. So if we just move these 3 squares below here, then you also move the 3 squares below here. Then at this midpoint, this circle, this is where you can draw your lines. Okay. So what you can do is, since you have this line, you can just draw from one end to this end, and you draw this line from one end to this end as well. Okay, and there you go, you have a square over here. Okay, so that is how you can draw a square. There's many ways to do it. So my way is just to make it into a triangle, right? So if I were to reverse back what I did, right, draw a triangle. So I just move it downwards. That's what you see. And then this will give us a midpoint. These two lines intersect, and since it gives us the point, then we just draw the line to create the square. That's what you see over here. And that's it. That's how you get your square for question 9. Okay, let's move on to the next question. All right, so we are at section B. So in this case, a jar has 4.36 liters of water. A container has 3.89 more water than a jar. What is the total volume of the water in the jar and the container? Okay, so if you want to draw a model, you can. So for example, in this case, let's say jar, and then you also have the container, right? So I'm going to put this over here. So the jar and container, and then the jar is 4.36 liters or 4.36. I'm going to put L here. Okay, so then the container, it's also 4.36 but also has more water. So that means this is 3.89 in this case over here. 3.89 liters. Okay, so now they want to ask how much are all of this together in this case. So simply what you can do is you can either say total equal to, let me put it like this, 4.36 plus 4.36 plus 3, plus 3.89, which is equal to, so this one, you can do your workings, right? So for me, I'm just gonna do 9.72 plus 3.89. Okay, so I'm gonna put 4. Gonna use my calculator, but 4.36 times 2, right, plus 3.89, which 12.61 liters L. Okay, so that's the answer. Okay, so it's 12.36 liters. Okay, so there should be a liter sign, but I'm gonna put L just so to get it straight as what you see over here. Okay, so 12.61 liters. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 11. Okay, so a piece of string is 7.2 meters long. Sally cuts it into two pieces. The longer piece of string is 2 times as long as the shorter piece. So what's the length of the longer piece? Okay, so in this case, we can just work in a way backwards. The longer piece is 2 times as long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a model, right? So we have this. So longer piece 2 times as long as the shorter piece. Okay, so in a way, you have in a way 3 units, right? So you also have, they cut it in the middle like this. So I don't think this is working. So I'm gonna put an arrow instead. Okay. So there's no anything here, and it's just dotted. So they cut like this, right? And the longer piece, right? The longer piece over here. Oh, actually, I can create a line. Okay, but never mind. So the longer piece over here, or total basically. Okay, I'm just gonna move this up. The total here is 7.2 meters. Okay, so I'm gonna have this like this. Okay, and then I'm also gonna say that this is the longer piece, right? So longer piece, longer, oops, longer, and then we also have the shorter one as well. Okay, so what is the length of the longer piece? Okay, so I think it's pretty straightforward. So in this case, you have 1 unit. Here is also 1 unit. And then here's also 1 unit, right? So in this case over here, what we can do is we can just say 3 units, right? You can put 3U as well, right? 3 units is equal to 7.2 meters. 1 unit is equal to 7.2. Then you have divide, right? So divide it by 3. Oops. Divide by 3. And this gives you 2.4 meters. Okay. And then the longer one is 2 units, right? So the longer 2 units, right? Which is also the longer string is equal to, I'm going to make this at the bottom, 2.4 times 2, right? And this gives us 4.8 meters, right? You can also, in a way, minus 7.2 minus 2.4, but it gives you the same answer. The answer is 4.8 meters. Okay, so the answer to this is 4.8 meters. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, Ali bought 10 kg of rice. She packed some rice into 6 bags. The mass of each bag of rice is 1.25 kg. What's the total mass of 6 bags of rice? Give your answers in kilograms. Pretty straightforward. So one bag of rice is equal to 1.25 kilograms. Okay, so 6 bags, right, of rice, right, 6 bags is equal to 1.25 times 6, which is equal to, let's do some mental math, right, 1.25, okay, it's equal to actually 7.50 kilograms, and that's it. That's the answer. 7.50 kilograms. Okay, so what next question. What was the mass of the rice that was left unpacked? Okay, so they've packed into 7.5, but this is not the whole rice because Ali bought 10 kg. So this means what we need to do is to just minus, right? So in a way, if I were to zoom this out a bit to just see, so total we have 10 kg, right? Not 10k, 10 kg, and then packed we have 7.50 kg. So that means the unpacked is equal to, let me zoom it in so it's easier to see, 10 minus 7.50 or 0.5, either way it works, equal to 2.5 kg. So that's the answer to this. Okay, so the answer is 2.5 kg. Here, there you go. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 13. All right, here it says Harry had some marbles. He gave 1/3 of his marbles to his sister and 2/9 of his marbles to his friend. Then Harry had 80 marbles left. How many marbles did Harry have at first? Okay, so in this case, we want to work backwards. Okay, so essentially, Harry gave his marbles to his sister, right? So I'm just going to write down a summary. So gave to sister, which is 1/3. Okay, then gave to friends is equal to 2/9. Okay, so that means what he's left with is 80, right, in terms of marbles. Okay, marbles left. Okay, and also we need to know marbles fraction left. okay, which is basically 1 minus 1 over 3, or 1/3 minus 2 over 9. Okay, in this case we can make it a little bit easier for us to work with, which is basically making the denominator to 9. So 1 will be, in this case, 9 over 9 minus, so 1/3 will be 3 over 9 minus 2 over 9. Okay, and now we are left with 9 over 9, 3 over 9, 2 over 9. So basically 4 over 9. Okay, so marbles fraction left with is 4 over 9. Okay, so two ways you can do is like 4 over 9 of marbles is equal to 80, or same we saying 4 units of marbles. So this is the fraction way. I'm gonna do the fraction way first. 4 out of 9 marbles 80. So 1 over 9, you can do this also, of marbles is equal to 80. Then we divide it by 4. Divided by 4 equal to 20. And 9 over 9 of marbles is equal to 20 times 9 equal to 180. Okay, so this is the fraction way. Another way is you can convert 4 over 9, which is, so this is the fraction way. Another way, let me write down another section, right, which is basically after this saying that 4 units is equal to 80. Okay, right, 4 units, and total is equal to 9 units. Okay, so two ways you can do this, right? So the way, yeah, marbles fraction left. Okay, in this case what you can do is you can convert this into this one. Okay, I don't want this, so let me just put it like that. Yeah, something like this. Okay, so yeah, like this. Okay, I don't know why it looks like that, but all right. So total units 9 units because the denominator is always the total, and 4 units is what is he left with, and we know the marbles left is 80. So same thing. Then that means one. Okay, I think this one we don't need to. Yeah, and ooh, interesting. Okay, I, I'm like, so okay, never mind. So 1 unit is the same now, right? 80 divided by 4 equal to 20. Okay, in this case, right, and then 9 units. Okay, it's equal to 20 times 9, which is 180. That's about it. Okay, and both answers are correct. So the answer over here will be 180 marbles. Marbles, right? Marbles, yes. Okay, put here 180 marbles. All right, this should be the last question. Question 14. At a bakery, the price of a bun is 80 cents. For every 2 buns bought, the bakery gave another 1 bun for free. How much would 3 buns cost? So buy 2, get 1 free. Okay, so that means if we buy 2, in total, how much buns do we get? Okay, so in this case, total, we will have a total of 3 buns. Okay, if we do this special offer, but we only need to buy 2. So what does this mean? So this means that 2 buns, basically one set of bun, not one set, but basically 2 buns is equal to 2 times 0.80, which is equal to dollars 1.60. So in a way, 2 buns also, we will also get 3 buns, right? Because 2 buns, so 2 buns, we get free one, total 3 buns, right? So the answer over here is simply just $1.60. Okay. All right. So last one. Garrett needs 27 buns. What's the least amount of money he needs to buy? Okay. So that means we're going to use the offer as much as possible. So what we need to do is one set of 3 buns is equal to dollars 1.60. Okay. So how many sets are we getting? So number of sets is equal to 27, and then we have divide by 3. Okay, because divide by 3 buns. Okay, which is equal to, so this is your 9 multiplication table. Okay, so now okay, number of buns is equal to basically 9 times dollars 1.60. Okay, so I will just have mental 9 plus 5.4, because 9 times 0.6, 5.4, equal to $14.40 in this case. So the answer to this is $14.40. Okay. All right. So that's about it for this Tong Primary 4 Mathematics 2024 Term 3 review. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want more of this kind of videos, subscribe down below and comment down what are the questions or exam papers you want me to go through next. See you in the next one. Bye bye.